Hi there, welcome to the Ground Noise. Let's talk about mastering music. Yes, that's right. I will give you a quick rundown of my mastering setup here in my DAW because yes, you can totally master your music in a DAW. In my case, it's Cubase of course, but you can use any other DAW as well, and even better, you don't need any of these special super magical trick master like a pro plugin or something, because I believe in the words of the famous mastering engineer Ian Shepherd, who just said, mastering is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And what that means, I show you right now. So this is my empty Cubase mastering template. It's just a stereo audio track for my final mix file, the WAV file, and a stereo out channel, of course, with all my plugins that I need. Before I start, I assume you have a general idea of what mastering means. Anyway, I will give you a quick explanation. In mastering, you work with the stereo file of the final mix of your song, with the main goal to beautify everything, whatever that means to you. And the main tool to do that is a pair of fresh ears and a monitor system you trust. So I recommend to take a break of like 1 or 2 days after you mixed a track to give your ears time to reset and also switch into a different mindset, into the mastering mindset. Because now you know everything is done, everything is really good, I finished the track, I mixed it very well. And now it's time to look at it again very closely and make tiny little changes to beautify everything if that's necessary. So right now I'm talking about mastering a single track with a goal to release that track on a streaming platform like Spotify, iTunes and so on. This is not about mastering an album. It's basically the same process, but when you're mastering an album there are a few extra steps you want to take. And also I'm not talking about mastering for vinyl or CDs or something. It's also not so different. But hey, I wanted to keep this little rundown very quick and simple without going too much into detail. So let's continue. Okay, beautify the song, make it sound really great. Make sure to export everything in the proper file format for streaming platforms. And I always start with the third point, it's a little quality check. So let me finally load my audio file. You can do that with File and Import Audio File, or just move it from, in my case, from my desktop into the project on the audio part here. Let's zoom in and check the beginning of the track. That's what I always do at first. So as you can see, I have half a second of silence going on before the actual music starts. I think that's a little bit too much, so I shorten it in the beginning, maybe a little bit more. You know how it works. And I also apply a fade in to really make sure that there is no cracking sound or something going on. You don't need to do that, but it's an old habit of mine. What can I do? And I also do that at the end of the song. Is even more important because you don't want your sound being cut off or something, or that there's a very, very long tail. So my process is just to shorten the file and also apply a fade out. You can see in the waveform that there is a fade out already going on. I do something like that, and also I shorten my marker because everything that's between the markers will be exported. Let's add an extra second here at the end of the actual file. And my next step is to look at some statistics. You can do that with audio and statistics. It reads the file and tells me the LUFS loudness levels and true peak levels, DC offset. I don't need to do that, you know, it's my music. I have written it, produced it, I've mixed it. So at this point, I pretty much know what's going on with the levels, but it's just a quality check, okay? For the same reason, I also look at the spectrum analyzer, because believe it or not, just in one of my last projects, I saw some really weird spikes going on, like in this area, like 10K, really crazy, and I haven't heard that. But I could see it here immediately. So that was really a problem with the plugin or something. So I went back to the mix, found the problem, fixed the problem, and then I continued with mastering. But so far, all the info is only about my mixing file, the unmastered file. But to see what's going on with the mastered version, I always have, at the end of my effect chain, supervision activated, this plugin with all the meters. But don't get me wrong here, this is only a visual help. I mix and master, of course, with my ears and not with my eyes. But in case something goes wrong, it will be easier to find the mistake or the issue. And yeah, sometimes you just want to make sure that everything is all right. So this is very helpful. But don't worry if you don't have such a fancy meter plugin available in your DAW. It's no problem at all, because some sort of metering you will have. It's like loudness measuring, and some plugins like equalizers will show you the frequencies, and also other plugins can give you information about the stereo image. So don't worry about that too much. Now it's finally time to talk about my mastering effect chain. You've been waiting for it all the time, right? Maybe this is the right moment for a call to action or something, so that they subscribe and like, but I'm not sure, I don't know. Maybe it's too bothering. I think it's too bothering right now. So I don't do that. Good, my effect chain is in the inserts of my stereo out channel, and that's all. And I do not even use all of this. Because remember, mastering is simple. So for me, it's mainly EQing and limiting. And everything else is optional. Let me show you my equalizer. It's frequency. It's a stock plugin here in Cubase, and it's I think the best equalizer I have ever had. But again, don't worry if you don't have such an advanced equalizer at hand. It's more about the following EQing tips I can give you. Please make notes. At first, that one general magic setting that works with every project doesn't exist. Yes, I know YouTube. There are many videos. I've seen a lot of videos. One guy tells you, oh, you always have to do a low-cut filter. The next guy tells you, never do a low-cut filter. Other guys will tell you that this and that frequency needs a boost always, because that's what the pros are doing, you know. Other guys are always reducing 1K because they think it sounds like, I don't know. Just believe me, none of this is true, because every project is different. Every song is different. And yes, very often I have a low-cut filter and a high-cut filter in my equalizer. And sometimes, yes, absolutely, I reduce the 1K area as well. But it really depends on the project, and I only can recommend to always start from scratch and first listen what's missing or what's too much, and then try to make a correction with the equalizer. And another tip is, of course, you can make your own experiences. That it's no problem. I only can tell you what I am doing, and I never crank up the EQ like more than 3 dB. When I need more than 3 dB to adjust a frequency, I start feeling bad. What I want to say is, don't crank it up too much. Better try to work with very subtle changes, except the low and high cut filters, of course. Let's talk about the next plugin here in line. It's a stereo enhancer. And I must say, I don't use this very often for various reasons. But when I use it, also very subtle with like between 10 and 20%. So this is really optional. And I must also say that here in frequency in the equalizer, we can also set frequencies to the side channels here, to add more information, like harmonic information to the side channels. And that's basically what a stereo enhancer does. It just adds more harmonic information to the side channels. And I don't know where it comes from, but I'm always a bit skeptical when it comes to stereo enhancers. So this is truly optional. As well as the multi-compressor here. A multi-compressor is an advanced compressor. The advantage of it is that you can set up the frequency regions. And as you can see, I only have 3 bands activated. I see no point in compressing the super heights above 10K. And recently I even have the tendency to also switch off the third one and maybe adjust the frequency regions here and go with only 2 compressors. The main stuff is happening, of course, in the midsection here. But I don't use this multi-compressor or compression at all in every mastering project, simply because at the moment most of my mixes are already kind of compressed. I always have a compressor in the stereo out of my mixes to glue everything together. And most of the time I don't think it's a good idea to compress everything even more. And I think you guessed it, I never use compressors to make something loud. That's never my intention when I use a compressor. It's more about transparency and punch. And like everything, it's more about balancing the dynamics. The same way like I use equalizer to balance the sound. But talking about loudness, it's time to talk about the limiter. And recently I fell in love with this one. It's the Razor limiter or plugin or whatever in Cubase. It's super simple and I really love simple things. So why do we need a limiter at the end of an effect chain? Mainly because to push our track to the right levels, the integrated LUFS levels to be exact. And I personally go, and I know this will trigger many of you, some of you, I don't know, I always go for -14. Because that's the recommendation of Spotify, iTunes and all the stream. I think it's all the same right now. All those big players came up with a standard, a recommendation for -14 dB integrated LUFS and also a true peak level, a ceiling of -1. And that's exactly what I'm aiming at. Also, I must say, I'm a proud survivor of the Loudness War. And I know that dynamic music sounds better. I don't see a point in just cranking up the limiter. Everybody can do that to fake loudness. But let's better not talk about the Loudness War in this video. And of course, you don't need to go exactly to -14 or something. I just love to do that because I'm a number freak, you know. I mean, just look at the way I set up my equalizer. It's all about whole numbers. That's important to me. No, I'm just kidding. Not. Back on topic, this is how I set up my limiter. It's always auto release. I think that's a very common setting. And I go for a -1 dB ceiling. That's the standard nowadays. And by moving this gain button in the input section, you can crank up the loudness. And every time you run into a mastering engineer that tells you, oh, I can make your music so loud like the pros. All the guy is doing is just moving this button, like cranking up like crazy to go for -3 LUFS or something. Absolutely no magic. No magic at all. So all you need to do is to play the whole song from beginning to end, so that the program calculates the integrated LUFS level. Let's say it's -17 and you want to go for -14. Guess what? You only need to turn this gain button to 3 dB because that's the difference between -17 and -14. And now you will master the song exactly at the integrated loudness level of -14. Not -14.1 or -13.8. It's really that simple. Still no magic. Now let me show you how you can export our mastered file in the right format. But before I do that, I want to thank you for watching this video and I hope you really enjoy it. Please leave a comment in the down there and also read the show notes, aka video description. I came up with my own name for the video description, you know. Good, let's say I'm done with mastering. Now I want to export my file and just make sure that all my effects are activated, all the effects that I need, and that my markers are still at the right place. Then I open File, Export and Audio Mixdown. And here set up the name of my song and the path, of course, and other things like conflicts, and it gives me a preview, very nice. But this is of course very important, the file format, and I always go for a WAV file. It's an uncompressed audio file, in this case with a sample rate of 44.1 and a bit depth of 16-bit. Interleaved, that's what you want to do for a normal stereo file. And by the way, this is CD quality, and there's still nothing's wrong with CD quality for music. But let's talk about sample rates right now. Better, let's open the export queue here, this button, and I add all of this to the queue here. And that's very cool because I also want to have an MP3 file of my master. to put it on a USB stick, what makes it easy to listen to the song in my car. So I have a preset here, MP3. I can also set up the ID3 tag if I want. And I add to queue again. And what I also like to do just for fun is to make a mono down mix. But in this case, I also change the name of the file so that I know it's the mono version. And let's add it to the queue. I can tell you it almost happened to me that I've uploaded the mono file instead of the correct one. And I realized that in the very, very last second. But this way I'm safe. Okay, and I start queue export and it will export all the 3 files. Look at this. Now you think it's done, but there's still one more important thing to do. And I really recommend to never leave this last step out. It's listening to your final mastered file one more time before you upload it anywhere. Just to make sure that everything is okay. And in the export audio mixdown panel here is another very cool setting. After export, you can also apply this, create audio track. Now it will render out the WAV file and at the same time will import it to the project. And for example, you can run the same little quality check we did in the beginning, like looking at the statistics and the spectrum analyzer. And of course, just listen to it again, please, without all the effects in the stereo out. And here we go. That was my quick rundown through my mastering setup in Cubase. And I hope I could encourage you to start mastering. It's worth it, I think. It's always worth it. Work hard on your final mix, but then forget about it for a couple of days. Then load it into such an empty project. And remember, after all, mastering is really simple. Please also remember to leave a like before you go. My name is Markus and I hope to see you soon in the next one.